Great Star Clan, breathed Sandstorm. The other two cats grunted in agreement, but Fireheart was speechless with horror. He had instantly recognized the shining expanse of water, and now he recalled Spotted Leaf's ominous words, "Water can quench fire." Fear chilled him as he struggled to understand how this flood could threaten his clan, so that he was hardly aware of Graystripe trying to attract his attention until the big gray cat pressed up close to his side. Panic flared in Graystripe's amber eyes, and Fireheart didn't need to ask why. His friend was afraid for Silverstream. The land was lower on the RiverClan bank, so the floodwaters could spread much farther. As for the camp on the island, Fireheart wondered how much of this was under water. He had grown to like Silverstream in spite of his concerns, and he felt a grudging respect for Mistyfoot and Graypool too. He didn't want to imagine them driven out of their camp, or worse, drowned. Running Wind had padded right up to the water's edge and was gazing out across the river. "RiverClan isn't going to like this," he remarked. "And a good thing, too. It'll keep them off our territory." Fireheart felt Graystripe tense at the note of satisfaction in Running Wind's voice. He shot his friend a warning glance. "Well, we can't patrol the border now," he pointed out. "We'd better get back to the camp and report this. Come on, Graystripe," he added firmly, seeing the warrior look once more with anguish across the swollen river. As soon as Bluestar heard the news, she leapt to the top of the high rock and gave the familiar call. "Let all cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath the high rock for a clan meeting." At once, cats began to pour out of their dens and into the clearing. Fireheart took his place at the front of the crowd, noticing with a prickle of annoyance that Cloudkit had come bouncing along after Brindleface, although he was too young to attend the meeting. He saw Yellowfang and Cinderpaw listening from the mouth of the fern tunnel. Even Broken Tail emerged from his den, nudged along by Mousefur. The bright morning was coming to an end. Clouds were massing to cover the face of the sun, and the gentle breeze had strengthened until the stiff wind blew across the clearing, flattening the fur of the cats who crouched around the high rock. Fireheart shivered and didn't know whether it was from cold or apprehension. "Cats of ThunderClan," yapped Bluestar, "our camp may be in danger. The snow is gone, but the river has burst its banks. Part of our territory is already flooded." A chorus of dismay rose from the clan, but Bluestar raised her voice above the yells. "Fireheart, tell the clan what you have seen." Fireheart stood up and described how the river had overflowed near the Sunning Rocks. "It doesn't sound that dangerous to us," meowed Darkstripe when he had finished. "We have plenty of territory left for prey. Let RiverClan worry about the floods." A murmur of approval broke out, although Fireheart noticed that Tigerclaw stayed silent. He sat at the base of the high rock, motionless, except for the twitching tip of his tail. "Silence!" spat Bluestar. "The water could spread here before we know it. Something like this is bigger than clan rivalry. I don't want to hear that any RiverClan cats have died from these floods." Fireheart noticed a hot glow in her amber eyes as she spoke, as if her words meant more than she had said. Puzzled, he remembered how angry Bluestar had been with him for speaking to RiverClan warriors, yet now her strength of feeling suggested a current of sympathy running deep within her. Patchbelt spoke up from among the elders. "I remember the last time the river overflowed many moons ago. Cats from all clans drowned. Prey drowned too, and we went hungry, even though our paws stayed dry. This is not just RiverClan's problem." "Well said, Patchbelt," meowed Bluestar. "I remember those days too, and I hope I would never have to see such times again. But since it has happened, these are my orders. No cat is to go out alone. Kits and apprentices must not leave the camp without at least one warrior. Patrols will go out to discover how far the floods reach. Tigerclaw, see to it." "Yes, Bluestar," meowed the deputy. "I'll send out hunting patrols too. We must build up a stock of prey before the water rises any further." "Good idea," agreed Bluestar. She raised her voice again to address the whole clan. "The meeting is over. Go to your duties." She leapt down lightly from the high rock and padded across to talk with Patchpelt and the other elders. Fireheart was waiting to see if Tigerclaw would choose him for a patrol when he noticed Graystripe edging away from the circle of cats. Fireheart headed after him and caught up just as he broke out from the gorse tunnel. "Where do you think you're going?" he hissed at the Grey Warrior's ear. "Bluestar just said that no cat should go it alone." Graystripe turned a panicky look on him. "Fireheart, I have to see Silverstream," he protested. "I have to be sure she's okay." Fireheart let out a long sigh of exasperation. He understood how his friend was feeling, but he could hardly have chosen a worse time to visit his mate. "How will you get across the river?" he asked. "I'll manage," Graystripe promised grimly. "It's only water." Don't be such a mouse brain, Fireheart spat, remembering the time Graystripe had fallen through the ice when Silverstream had rescued him. You nearly drowned once before. Wasn't that enough for you? Graystripe didn't answer. He just swung around and made for the tunnel again. Fireheart glanced over his shoulder. The other cats in the clearing were breaking into small groups under Tiger Claw's direction, ready to go out on patrol. Stop, Graystripe, he hissed, halting his friend at the entrance to the tunnel. Wait there. Once he was sure Graystripe had done as he asked, he bounded across the clearing toward the deputy. Hey, Tiger Claw, he meowed. Graystripe and I are ready to go. We'll check the River Clan boundary downstream of the Sunny Rocks, all right? Tiger Claw narrowed his eyes, clearly displeased that Fireheart had taken it upon himself to choose which area he was going to patrol. But he had no reason to refuse, especially with Bluestar in earshot. All right, he growled. Try to bring some prey back as well. Yes, Tiger Claw, Fireheart replied, dipping his head before turning to race back to Graystripe. Okay, he panted. We'll go on patrol, so at least no cat will wonder where we've gone. But you, Graystripe began to protest. I know you have to go, Fireheart meowed, but I'm coming with you. He felt a prickle of guilt as he spoke. Even on patrol, he and Graystripe wouldn't be expected to cross clan boundaries. Bluestar would be furious if she knew that two of her warriors were risking their lives to go into enemy territory when their own clan needed them so badly. But Fireheart couldn't just stand there and let Graystripe go alone. His friend could be swept away in the floods and never return. Thanks, Fireheart, murmured Graystripe as they left the tunnel. I won't forget this. Side by side, the two warriors scrambled up the steep, rocky slope. As they headed into the forest, retracing the steps of their earlier patrol, Fireheart noticed how muddy the ground was under paw. The melted snow had soaked the earth like the heaviest rainfall, even without the deadly spread of floodwater from the river. When they reached the edge of the trees, Fireheart realized that the water had risen even further. Sunny Rocks were almost submerged now, and the current swirled around them in tight circles. We'll never make it across here, he meowed. Let's head downstream, Graystripe suggested. We might be able to use the stepping stones. We can try, Fireheart meowed uncertainly. He was about to follow his friend when he thought he heard something, a thin, wailing sound above the wind and the rushing of the torrent. Wait, he called. Did you hear that? Graystripe looked back, and both cats stood, ears pricked, straining to catch the sound. Then Fireheart heard it again, the panic-stricken mewing of kits in distress. Where are they? He meowed, looking all around and up into the trees. I can't see them. There! Graystripe flicked his tail in the direction of Sunny Rocks. Fireheart, they'll drown! Fireheart saw the current had driven a mat of twigs and debris up against the Sunny Rocks. Two kits balanced precariously on it, their tiny mouths stretched wide as they wailed for help. Even as Fireheart watched, the current tugged at the mat, threatening to sweep it away. Come on, he yelled to Graystripe. We've got to reach them somehow. Taking a deep breath, he waded into the flood. The water soaked into his fur at once, and a paralyzing, icy chill crept up his legs. The tug of the current made it harder to stay on his paws with every step he took. Graystripe splashed in behind him, but when the water reached his belly fur, he stopped. Fireheart, he choked out. Fireheart twisted around to give him a comforting nod. He could understand how the river might terrify Graystripe, after his near drowning a few moons ago. Stay there, he meowed. I'll try to push the mat over to you. Graystripe nodded, trembling too violently to speak. Fireheart waded forward a few more paces, then launched himself into the current and began to swim, thrashing his legs instinctively to push himself through the black water. They were upstream of the Sunny Rocks. If StarClan was kind, he should be carried down toward the kits. For a moment he lost sight of them in the wind-ruffled waves, though he could still hear their terrified cries. Then the smooth gray bulk of Sunny Rocks loomed up beside him. He kicked out strongly, fearing for one panic-stricken heartbeat that he would be swept right past. The current swirled. Fireheart's paws worked furiously as the river tossed him against the rock, driving the breath out of his body. He scrabbled at the rough surface, bracing himself against the rushing water. He found himself face to face with two kits. They were both very small, still suckling from their mother, Fireheart guessed. One was black and one was gray, their fur plastered against their tiny bodies, and their brilliant blue eyes wide with terror. They were crouched on a tangled mat of twigs, leaves, and two-leg rubbish. But when they saw Fireheart, they started to scrabble toward him. The mat lurched, and their wails grew louder as the river water sloshed over them. Keep still, Fireheart gasped, paddling madly against the current. Briefly, he wondered if he could climb onto the rock and haul the kits up with him, but he was not sure how long it would be before the Sunny Rocks were completely submerged. His best plan was still to push the mat over to Graystripe. Looking back, he saw that his friend had already moved downstream into a good position to catch the mat as it was swept toward him. Here we go, Fireheart muttered. StarClan help us. He pushed himself off the rock, thrusting the mat with his muzzle to guide it into the current. The two kits whimpered and flattened themselves against the twigs. Fireheart put every last scrap of energy into pushing the mat ahead of him with his nose and paws. He could feel exhaustion draining the strength from his limbs. His fur was soaked and he was so cold he could hardly breathe. Raising his head and blinking water out of his eyes, he realized with horror that he had lost sight of Graystripe and the bank. It seemed as if there was nothing in the world but the churning water, the fragile mat of twigs, and the two terrified kits. Then he heard Graystripe's voice sounding close by. "Fireheart! Fireheart, here!" Fireheart thrust again at the mat, trying to propel it toward the voice. It spun away from him and his head went under. Coughing and choking, he clawed his way back to the surface to see Graystripe pacing on dry land just a few tail lengths away. For a heartbeat, Fireheart felt relief that he was nearly there. Then he focused his blurred eyes on the kits again, and fear pulsed through him. The mat was beginning to break up. Fireheart watched helplessly as the twigs underneath the gray kit gave way and the tiny creature was plunged into the torrent.